Hey everyone, Mark here. Bear with me for a second as I try to explain what's going on in this video. This week I was lucky enough to be able to interview three of the featured actors from the Amazon Prime series Three Pines. Sarah Booth, Julian Bailey, and Anna Tierney. Through 3 consecutive days. Now, I originally had planned, since I asked them basically the same questions about the show so I could get their individual thoughts. I thought about trying to be clever and trying to cut the video together to where it's me asking one question and then over the course of the 3 interviews, you get the idea. Instead of just having 3 separate interviews. But because I'm an idiot, when I got to the last interview with Anna Tierney, I lost a little bit of her introduction video and not quite as much of the video as audio. So I was able to put together most of her interview. You lost my intro and my greeting her, really, is what you lost. So, and me asking her how it felt to not actually be a Canadian in a French-Canadian show. But you get her answer to that. That's on me. I thought I had it handled as I was recording for the 3rd day in a row. As it turns out, I'm going to have to build myself an interview checklist with things to do before I say hi, everyone. So here's what's going to happen in this video and or audio, if you're listening to the audio version. You're going to get me talking with Sarah Booth, whom I talked to first. Then you're going to get me talking to Julian Bailey, who I talked to second. And then you will get the lovely, talented, and incredibly understanding Anna Tierney to finish this up. They all have really great things to talk about the show-wise, their character-wise, the future of the show going forward. So I hope you appreciate it. I will try to put chapters on this so you can click to whichever one of them that you want. And if it's the audio version, I'll try to cut it up so it's a little easier for you to get to any particular actor that you would like. So I apologize to you for you having to listen to me ask effectively the same questions 3 times. And I apologize to Anna Tierney for screwing up the very beginning of what was otherwise a really great discussion. So thanks for listening and or watching. We'll be back in the new year with more stuff for you. Take it easy, stay safe, don't drink and drive on New Year's Eve, and we'll see you all in 2023. I'm here with actress Sarah Booth, who is currently featured on a great series on Amazon Prime Video called Three Pines. Thank you for coming on. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our chat.
I hope so. Let's see what happens. Let's talk first. You play an enthusiastic yet inexperienced young officer, Agent Yvette Nicole.
Hmm.
Um, in this takes place in French Canadian Quebec. Um,
Quebec,
so that's got to be fun for you,
so fun.
because
Honestly, like I got to go back to my hometown. It was great.
oh really, that close? That's nice.
Yeah,
Um,
pretty much.
yeah, so obviously the French that's in this isn't really a challenge for you.
Not at all. Yeah, people have asked me, they're like, did you get a dialect coach for the accent? And I say, yes, my mother. That
Right.
was my dialect coach I've prepared my entire life for this role.
Don't you dream about things like that? Yeah, it's just every time I watch it, it reminds me how little of my long ago high school French I remember. Uh,
Yes.
can
Same.
I clarify one thing? Is this correct? You worked at Universal Studios Waterworld stunt show.
I did. Yes. Yeah. It was
Um,
a fantastic job, I gotta say. Like, talk about just playing on an adult jungle gym all day, you know? It was
do
great.
you, do you wish that Agent Nicole had more stunt work to do?
Yes. Yes, I really do.
What is your ideal uh what is your ideal stunt sequence for Agent Nicole?
Oh, for Agent Nicole. I think I would really like to do some stunt driving for her.
Like
I think
she winds up in the driver's seat instead of anybody else.
yes, and she like, has like a really good chase, and
I
I think that would be a great sequence for her. A lot of swearing,
Yeah, all in French with subtitles.
all in French.
That would be the best that would be the best kind. Um okay. Well, first the show Three Pines is based on a series of novels. They're whodunits in the
Mhm.
classic sense by Louise Penny. Were you uh familiar with the novels going into this
No,
first?
I
You
had no idea. When I got the audition breakdown, I saw who was involved, which is the producers of The Crown, and I was like, okay, this is big. And then I saw the description of the novels and that they were Canadian, and then there was 17 of them, and I was like, how have I never heard of these? Because I literally grew up an hour away from the, fictitious town of Three Pines. So I went down that rabbit hole for an afternoon and realized like there's a whole Louise Penny world out there that I did not know about. So it was really fun to kind of dive in and read some of the books and get to know the characters. But also, I realized that the character they wanted me to audition for is pretty different from the character in the books. Like, her essence is similar, but she's a little bit more of a rebel in the book and rude, kind of does things her own way.
ah
Um, and then in the series, they put her character description as awkward, eager, accident prone, that kind of stuff. So I thought that was interesting. And I was able to kind of build, kind of a new character, I guess, with the creators of the show. So I had a lot of fun just discovering who she is and being able to, do a lot of improv with her, which was a lot of fun. And I was able to bring, my upbringing of growing up in a tiny, small French Canadian town to that role. So a lot of Fringlish, a lot of just little things that certain characters in my life growing up had that made me laugh or were interesting for me.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
The hero, if you will, our protagonist of these novels is Chief Inspector Armand Gamache, played
Oh,
by
dog.
Alfred Molina. Um, and we'll get to him in a second. But you talked about creating Agent Nicole a little bit because she's a little bit different from the book. This has nothing to do with anything. It's just the last couple episodes that we watched. I was suddenly struck. Does Agent Nicole like to eat? Because
Yes, that's one thing. That's one thing that I kind of discovered with her was she has trouble kind of not just standing there and like listening and not doing anything. So whenever I would rehearse a scene with the director and the rest of the cast, I would kind of gravitate to like doing something, always finding something to like fiddle with because I feel like she's socially uncomfortable. So the food helped because whenever there was food, it was something new. It smells good. I just want to, just want to try it. And I feel like she's not really, the type of character to bring herself like a nice packed lunch every day. I feel like she's just like, I'm hungry. What's around? So I brought that into her. Like I just felt like she was a busybody.
it was noticed. And then I thought about it because like the last couple episodes, like someone brought in the baked goods and she was like on it, like
On
she
it.
was all on it. And then I thought it was, a couple episodes. Did you guys already order lunch or breakfast? And I'm just like, wait a minute, there's a food theme here. So I just thought it was funny. It's apropos of nothing, but I
Yeah,
noticed it and I
and
wanted
it
you to
just
know
felt
that.
it just felt right. And honestly, like I feel like she has this puppy energy to her. And she's just always like sniffing things out. And one of my co-stars, Anna, said very well that she, never leaves a stone unturned. And she's just, always sniffing something out. So that just made sense too when there was, I guess, food.
No, it's great. Um, we already know you speak French, which is great.
I do, yes.
And we talked about how you originally saw Agent Nicole and whatnot. the whodunit, let's get back to that for just a second. Seems to kind of be enjoying this sort of mini renaissance. We've got
Yeah.
Kenneth Branagh's Agatha Christie films. We've got Ryan Johnson has now had two whodunits in Knives Out and Glass Onion. There's even, we even had the comedy this year, See How They Run.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's just fun. It's Clue, but maybe a little less wackadoodle.
Okay. Okay.
But still enjoy it. Sam Rockwell is great, and Saoirse Ronan is outstanding. So if you can
Oh,
watch those two,
both of
then
them.
yeah, you can watch that movie
Yes.
all day long. Why do you think that that's going to stay a thing? Because I mean, whodunits used to be big. Westerns used to be big, and they went away.
Yeah.
They're kind of doing it, but the whodunit never really had a heyday. But it feels
I
like
think
it's
it is right
more.
now, though. Like we just binged The White Lotus, and that's, in its own way, a who done it. Well, someone dies, but you just don't know exactly like who dies and who kills, right? So I feel like I think there's maybe a joy in the binge watch of the who done it, maybe because people, hurry up to watch it to, before the internet spoils it, I guess. But, with Three Pines, we have two of those, like we have two episodes a week. So we do have like that weekly Who Done It, but we also have the season Who Done It, which is interesting as well. But yeah, I don't know why I guess, I feel like action movies have kind of its time and I feel like we circle back around, but I definitely feel like we just came out of like a horror phase and now we're like going into like a murder mystery phase.
I hope so, because they are terribly enjoyable.
They
Um,
are.
the Three Pines, I don't know. It's like it reminds me of another series that ran for 6 seasons, I think. Longmire on
I've never seen
AMC.
it.
Oh, if you want a
Who's in it?
Western kind of whodunit, sure. I blanked out.
Is the poster like just a dude and his horse?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I,
it's
I haven't
not
seen it.
Yellowstone, which is out now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This was on it. Yeah. So
Okay.
but the comparison I made is they actually both, but because Longmire takes place in Wyoming, near the Indian reservation.
Okay.
So the and over the course of the seasons, there's a lot of interplay between, you know, uh, America, the government and the tribal authority, and so they both shows kind of hit on the plight of the indigenous people, especially the indigenous women.
Yes.
And that I was going to ask, obviously, if you've never seen the show, but so you can't compare the two. But was that something you noticed going into the show, Three Pines? And was that something that attracted you? Were you really aware of it? Did they really stress it as you were working through the show?
Well, what was really interesting is I was able to read some of the scripts before I signed on, I believe. I think I at least got to read one. So I knew that there was an Indigenous storyline. But once we actually did the whole season read through over a week on Zoom, I was just so impressed by how much of the storyline it was throughout the season. And also the people that were involved with the series, are just such, first of all, incredible creators, and just having their input and having, every note was taken. So, and they had a lot of input from Indigenous communities, Indigenous creators, actors. It just felt like it was very collaborative, and it felt like everyone who was involved that was Indigenous was really proud of it. And I think that was the most important part, was for it to be authentic and for it to not just be about tragedy, which I feel like a lot of Indigenous stories are only about tragedy. And yes, there has been a lot of tragedy, but I think that it's really important to show the resilience of the community and the positive aspects. So I think the input that they gave was just like, people, just the feedback that I've gotten from people just thanking that their lives are reflected, or that it's just such a authentic, great story to watch and to be slightly educated by.
Yeah, the thing I like about it is it's very clear that it's a major kind of point of Inspector Gamash's um career. I mean, it's something that gets, it's the kind of thing that sticks in his craw anyway. But
Yeah.
I love the fact it's there, but it's not the thing, and they never beat you with it. It's always, they don't downplay it, but
Hmm.
nor do they sit there and continually pontificate about it. So it's clearly important. It's clearly good. I think the balance they struck is really, really nice. The way it weaves in with everything else instead of just being like this clumps of things that they slap you with every once in a while. So I
Yeah.
think the balance is really well struck. Um, you mentioned one of your co-stars, Anna, earlier, who plays Clara Morrow, one of the artists. I'll actually be talking to her in a couple days.
Oh,
Um,
great.
but that this is a big cast. There's a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So even Alfred Molina is the lead, but he's not on screen all the time. There's a lot of other stuff going on. Um, what is it like working with such a huge group of actors? Um, and then of course I'll give you a chance to gush about Alfred Molina if you'd like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, working with all the actors was great because a lot of them were actually from Montreal, and that's where I started my career and continued to work throughout my entire career. So it was fun to work with people that I've done theater with or just been in the acting community with. And Claire Coulter, I had done an entire series of television with before, a show called Helix that was on Sci-Fi. So that was really fun to just either get to know or reunite with a lot of actors and also get to know Anna, who is originally from the UK, but now she's a Canadian. And I, got a great relationship with her still to chat with her and hang out with her a lot. Same with Elmaya. And of course, working with Alfred Molina was just fantastic. I was, of course, really intimidated when I found out that he was cast as Armand Gamache. And just hearing his name elevated the entire project and everything that I had imagined about the project. So it was, I was nervous, but when I met him, he has such like a chill, fun, playful essence to him. And he was just wonderful to work with, to learn from. He really, emphasized and I learned, never take yourself too seriously, just have fun and yeah, and I really, really hope we get a second season because I want to hang out with everyone again.
Okay, so speaking of that,
Yeah.
this Canadian produced. I mean, it's French Canadian for fuck's sake.
Yes.
Um,
Mhm.
what kind of reception did you guys kind of think you were going to get outside of? I mean, because that's kind of a niche market, sort of.
It
Uh,
is.
but to be fair, uh, to follow up on that, there seems to be a lot more, as a crass American, I'll say, foreign material coming in. Foreign drama. The European drama TV is ridiculous. The
Mhm.
Asian television is just ridiculous. But does it feel like we're getting more of that now, or we're just being exposed to more of that now?
I feel like well, I don't know. I feel like maybe a little bit of both. I feel like there's so much more television being produced and shared, throughout the whole world, throughout streaming platforms. But I also feel that there's a lot more bilingual shows being done, or just being able to watch a show on Netflix that was produced in Mexico or in Italy, or in France. There's just so many great hit shows that are being shared around and remade as well. So yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both, but there's just so much television being cast and being made right now that it's really exciting. I think there's a little bit of everything for everyone, and it's kind of opened up a lot of different genres for people too. There's been so many great horror series that I don't think, anyone would go to Blockbuster and, pick up on the shelf if it just wasn't on Netflix. So yeah, I think it's just a great place for people to, find really special shows.
Yeah, I have a few of my own favorites from both directions, which is nice. But
Mhm.
were you expecting? I haven't seen numbers on on what kind of viewership Three Pines has gotten. Have you guys heard anything about that as it relates to possibly getting season 2?
Well, they never tell us the numbers, but we do know that we were the number one show on Prime in the US, in Canada, UK, and Australia. So that's great news. And I'm sure, hopefully that encourages them to explore these stories a little bit more, because the feedback, like just the messages that I'm getting from people from all over the world, it's just so fun to be part of something that so many people can watch. I've done some great Canadian shows, but a lot of people throughout the world can't really access them, or they have to wait, a couple of years later for it to hit Netflix or whatever streaming platform it
Yeah.
gets delivered on. But it's really fun to be part of something so big, and like real time, 2 episodes a week. I really think people are responding really well to it, and it's just slightly different and really catching a lot of people's attention.
Yeah, one of the things that I like about like I said, I'm a fan of Dark. 1899 just wrapped up. With Squid
Mhm.
Games when it comes, they all just have a different
Oh, I
feel than what
love Squid
like
Game.
we're used to.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's kind of the appeal actually of the Asian horror as well, because Asian horror is markedly different from Western horror.
Hmm.
And if you're into that, so the feel is different. And I'm hoping, and Three Pines feels different enough. It doesn't feel foreign, but
Right.
it's not what you would see on Friday nights on CBS normally, like back in the
Exactly.
heyday. So
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I think it's got a nice mix. It's got a nice balance of message. It's got a great cast. You guys are all great.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I know I only have so much time, so I'll thank you one more time
Oh,
for
thank
coming
you.
on and
Thanks for
talking.
having
And
me.
then I will finish up with two questions because this
Sure.
is technically a movie podcast.
Hmm.
What is the last movie you saw in a theater?
Ooh, that's a great question. Okay, give me 2 seconds. My husband will probably yell it from the other room. Last movie I saw in the theater, and it wasn't that long ago. Oh my goodness. Okay, ask me the next one. Hopefully that comes to me.
What is the favorite movie that you watched this year? Because there was a lot of good stuff in 2022.
My favorite movie that I watched this year. This is okay. You're gonna get a lot of like dead noise. You know what? The first 6 months of this year, I didn't really watch that many movies because I had finished uh, shooting the series, and I was like, I sat at home and I was like, I don't know why.
Do you
I don't
need a
know why.
break?
But okay, well, I would have to say I've been watching more series. Can I say
You
series that
can
I
say
really like?
series.
Well, I just binged The White Lotus, and I have to say that's blew my socks off.
I haven't had time. I keep hearing wonderful things about it. I don't think I really understood that it was a mystery type. I don't know what I
Yeah.
thought it was, but you said it's kind of a whodunit. And I'm like, well, it's
It's a
not really.
whodunit.
I don't think that's what I was thinking it was. So I might have to go and binge on that. Let me rattle off a couple names. Did you see any of the big ones this year? Did you see Top Gun this year? I
I
can't even.
did. I
Did
saw
you
Top
see?
Gun.
How did you feel about Top Gun?
I loved it.
Did you?
I
Did
loved it.
you?
I thought it was a really good, like, you knew what you were going to get. It was like the recipe of a great summer blockbuster, and I loved it. I had zero complaints in that movie. It
All
was
right.
wonderful.
Let me go one more. Let me go a completely different direction. Did you watch Marcel the Shell with Shoes on this
I did not.
year? Tragic.
I will have to.
Yes, you will. If you don't have a soul, I don't think, if you don't like that movie.
I know, and I love animated movies so much.
It's and of course, if you're on Netflix, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio
Yes, no, I haven't seen that one.
is fabulous.
Yeah.
I can highly recommend it. And weirdly, a movie, I'll give you one more animated film. This is three animated films in a row, by the way, that I wasn't expecting to enjoy is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
I love Puss in Boots.
I was not expecting to like
I
that.
honestly, I just love movies that are great for kids, but just have that adult humor. I just, I
Are you a
like,
horror? Are you a horror at all? I'll keep you for one more minute.
I do. I don't watch a ton of horror, but I like, like I grew up on, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, like all that was like all the slasher movies that we were addicted to.
Ah, Well, then I'll one more recommendation is, of course, Violent Night. I can't recommend that movie enough
Oh,
to people.
that's the movie I saw in theaters. Thank you very much. There
That
it is.
were you thumbs up, thumbs down? Where are you
I
at?
loved it.
I
I loved it.
I saw it
I love
twice. I
action.
smiled the whole way, the entire time for no. I don't understand why, but I did.
Yeah,
It's
I laugh out loud. Like I had a great time. I was so vocal in that movie. It was a blast.
it's if there's one to be excited about it, yeah, it almost feels like a crowd movie. You have to have an audience. It would be tough to watch that by yourself and have as good a time.
Yeah, well,
So
that's a reason I wanted to go to the theater because, it's one of those movies that you're like, no, I just want to see with some people around me, have some movie energy a little bit. And we're going to see Avatar this week as well.
okay, I'd be
Really
interested to
excited.
see what you think.
Okay.
Tweet your opinions. Well, thank you again, Sarah Booth. Three Pines is on Amazon Prime Video right now. All 8 episodes. It's 4 mysteries in 2 episode chunks.
Yeah.
That is season 1. Hopefully, we get word on a season 2 soon,
Yes.
so we can see more of this. We get. I don't want to be left with the cliffhanger we have
No,
because that's not cool at
that's not
all.
nice.
I wouldn't like to end the series that way. No spoilers.
Not very Canadian of us to
No,
end.
right? Not horribly, not polite at all. But thank you again so much for coming on. I do appreciate you taking the time, and I will let you get back to your day.
Aw, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And, if we have season 2, let's talk about that.
Anytime you want to talk, just reach out about anything. If you see a movie in the theater and you're like, I need to vent about this movie,
Love it.
come on, we'll talk about anything.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Well, thank you again, Sarah. I
Oh
appreciate
my
that.
God, you're so welcome. Thanks for having
And
me.
like I said, I hope there weren't any boring questions.
No boring questions.
Good, no boring questions. That's
I
good.
love
The movie
talking.
questions always get people because everyone immediately draws a blank. I tried to
Me
tell
too. I'm like, what did I just go see? What did I just go see? Yeah.
I did tell Jeff to warn all of you because I'm talking to Julian tomorrow and Anna on Thursday or Friday. I forget what day of the week it
Did
is.
he warn me?
I don't know, but I told him to. I said they're going to get questions about movies, about what they've seen this year. So I will, when I thank
Maybe he
him for
did.
setting this up, I will remind him to remind the other two. So,
Yeah, maybe.
um,
I'm like, did he write that? I'm like, oh no. Oh no. I don't think he did. No.
it's okay. No worries, because then I get to mention a lot of other movies that I really enjoyed. So,
Well, there you go.
yeah.
But yes, Violent Night, so funny.
Violent Night is so funny. If you're and when you go see Avatar, see it in IMAX if
Oh
you
yes.
can. 3D is not. I'm still of the opinion that 3D is a gimmick.
Okay.
That's me. That's
I'm
my
not a
opinion.
huge fan, but
But if you saw Maverick in IMAX, you should at least watch Avatar in IMAX because it is a gorgeous film.
I
The
know.
visuals are redonkulous.
My husband will be, when he comes with me this week, it'll be his 4th viewing.
Oh my God.
He's a filmmaker, so obviously, like,
Yeah, he's looking for stuff to steal visually. That's what he's doing. That is why he's doing that. So, okay. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming back to the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. As always, I am Mark, your host. With me today from the Amazon Prime series Three Pines, actor Julian Bailey, who plays artist Peter Morrow. Welcome and thank you for coming on, sir.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So this is this French Canadian show.
Yeah.
You are Canadian and British ish, Montreal native.
Yeah.
So my first question is, how much French refresher did you need for any of the French in this show?
Honestly, I didn't need any French refresher. I didn't have to speak any French. To whatever degree they spoke French in the show, I was pretty comfortable with. You probably noticed my character doesn't speak any French, at least not that I recall.
No.
Yeah.
But it does pop
So
up every once in a while.
Do I speak French in the show?
No, but I think sometimes some of the characters get a little bit, and I forget who's in frame.
No, that's true. That's true. And yeah.
Yeah, so hey, that's great. And apropos of nothing about Three Pines, I noticed in your CV that you worked on an American soap
I did.
at one point, Young and the Restless. Now,
I did.
as a man of a certain age, there were days when I stayed home from school sick with my grandmother.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that I stayed at home sick with
Well,
my grandmother, and I'm just gonna leave it at that.
yeah, leave it at
Um,
that. I
yeah,
won't fill in any blanks. Don't worry.
yeah. So, people joke about self. I almost feel like that's a rite of passage for young actors. I mean, it feels like if you anybody now, you're like, oh yeah. And in 1987, they did 8 months on soap opera X. I mean, does it feel that way? Do you a lot of? I mean,
Well, I'll tell you what it feels like, man. Like at the time when I got that part, and it was a really short arc. It was a recurring arc. I think I did
right.
4 episodes or something. Um, it nearly turned into a much bigger thing, and that's a whole other story that I don't know if we have time for that. But no, it was a relatively short thing, and it was kind of an aberration of a character on that show because I was providing a certain amount of comic relief on the show. I was just this bartender named Vincent who basically flirted with every very attractive woman on the show, including the elderly women, and just throwing out cheesy pickup lines and stuff like that. But it was trippy and surreal for me because obviously I grew up hearing about The Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful and General Hospital and stuff like that. So getting cast on The Young and the Restless and realizing I was going to be on that show and I was going to like forever be like have that in my career like track record that I was on The Young and the Restless was pretty surreal. But one of the trippiest things or most surreal things about it for me is the show I really grew up on was The Price is Right. And we were filming right across the hall from The Price is Right. And so I would see Bob Barker in the cafeteria, and I would see the big Showtime showdown wheel, spinning wheel thing, whatever you call it. And I would hear, in fact, at the time, because this was a while ago, they were actually in the process of phasing out Bob and trying to audition for a new host. And of course, eventually they went with Drew. But yeah, the funny thing is, I don't know if this is like I'm sure I'm allowed to say this at this point, but the guy who was in the front running at the time for the host of Price is Right was a guy named, I believe his first name was Dave, but his last name was Price. His name was Dave Price, and he was the guy who they were really looking at to take over the helm from Bob Barker. And I remember hearing them doing tapings, kind of like trial runs at that time. And of course, they ended up getting it to Drew Carey, which oftentimes is what happens. Dave Price was a weather guy from New York City, as I recall. But yeah, Drew Carey got it, as often is the case. They go with the big name, and Drew Carey had kind of made a name for himself by that time. So the rest is history. But yeah, it's a rite of passage, maybe. I feel very fortunate to have been a part of it. It was a cool experience.
That's cool. Were you familiar with the novels that Three Pines is based on from Louise Penny?
No, I wasn't actually. I became familiar with them once. When I got closer to me ultimately getting cast, and then after I got cast, I started to, of course, familiarize myself with her books, with her novels, and her amazing stories. But no, I wasn't beforehand. And I mean, I'm not like Anna Tierney, who plays Clara in the show. She literally had read all of her books like up to that point before even. I think before even auditioning. Don't quote, but she had read.
Oh, I'm talking to her tomorrow, so I'm sure I'll hit her with that.
Yeah, you can get her to quote that if that's true. But yeah, and so she had a chance to really sink her heels into that material. I didn't, and then once I was cast, and I started to read the stuff, and we were getting real close to shooting, I was trying to familiarize myself with, particularly with the Murder Stone, which there was another. They republished it with a different title, and it's escaping me right now. But that would be like what episodes 5 and 6 were basically based on. Yep. So since those were kind of my character's main episodes, the director was recommending that I get kind of familiar with that book. So I started with that one, and then later started reading Still Life after we'd already started shooting, and then started noticing some things that, one could say were discrepancies between the way my character is described in the books, let's say just physically.
Right.
And that kind of got in my head for a bit. And I was like, oh, I better distance myself for a second and focus on the scripts, because in terms of the internal drive of this guy, there was, I tried to keep it very true to the books. And I think Amelia and, Catherine and the people that were writing the screenplays, the teleplays, did a pretty good job of keeping the core elements of these characters intact. But as far as the physical stuff, we veered a little bit, and certain things, weren't really my choice. But I just kind of tried to merge and work with the vision of the producers and the director, which I think ultimately worked pretty well. Perhaps to the chagrin of some of the hardcore fans of the novels, but that's this world, man. Adaptations are tricky, man, especially when you have such a massively beloved series and characters such as these are.
Yeah. You mentioned Anna Tierney, who plays Clara, who is your wife, on the show. So you play Peter Morrow. She plays Clara. You are actually both artists in the show. What's your art background, if any?
My art finger paints. Yeah, my art background as far as actual fine art goes, personally, is not super impressive. I do like painting. I've always liked painting. Maybe I could be good at it. I've never really given it enough of a shot to know if I have any actual talent there. I will say my mother is a phenomenal painter. That's actually true. She's a musician, but she's a phenomenal painter. She always has been. Her father was an extraordinarily talented painter, like details and impressionist stuff, and I mean just the gamut. And my both of my father's parents, both of them were exceptional painters. I mean, like legit exceptional painters, not as a profession per se. Although I think my mom's dad had sold some stuff. I think, don't quote me on that either. But yeah, no, I was surrounded by art growing up, and my mom, in fact, when I was a kid, made it a point to take me to galleries with my brother. She made it a point. That was like a regular part of my childhood, was going to galleries and looking at paintings, and just hopefully becoming cultured or whatever.
Right. Well, then you wound up acting. How did you not wind up with a paintbrush in your hand? How did you wind up on the stage?
Yeah
in front of the camera?
Yeah, paintbrush, or behind a piano or at a piano. I started in music. My mom was a piano teacher, and so she, and by the way, the British thing is really through my mother. She's from London, and she was a classically trained pianist from going back to her childhood. I mean, that was like her thing. Although her dream was to be a ballerina, but she was a classically trained pianist, and she went to the Royal Academy of Music in London. And her brother, actually, my uncle, is a pretty accomplished organist and composer in England. But I was raised, to learn the piano and to have a foundation in music, to know how to read music and all of the above. And what happened was, my mom was trying to teach me, and I couldn't sit still, and so they got me another teacher, who they thought I might be more cooperative with. And after that, I met a kid at school who was on a TV show, Canadian TV show, and I realized he was kind of well, how do I put this? He was sort of, I don't know, there was something about it, the fact that he was on a TV show, that I just thought was really cool. I guess I was a little starstruck in a way, and I thought to myself, like, I could do that job. Like, I could pretend to be these people and pull it off, and hide in these characters. And I asked my parents if I could join this children's theater group called the Children's Theater of Montreal. And I did, and they said cool. And then eventually I kind of phased out the piano, because I started doing so much in that realm, because I ended up getting referred to some dubbing houses, and I did some anime cartoons. Just my voice. When I was about 11 years old, I got my first anime cartoon, and then after that, it just started kind of rolling in. Did a play with the National Theatre School of Canada when I was about 11 or 12, and and then did a movie because the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation was scouting for talent throughout the city coming through elementary schools, and I got cast in this movie. And so all these things, the stage, the screen, and the microphone, I guess, voiceovers sort of converged at once. And then I decided to keep on the path of, just taking whatever was coming in, but trying to have a relatively normal childhood. So I didn't try to get an agent or anything. It was all just like direct bookings at that point. And then after I turned 18, I moved to Southern California and went to acting school. And then that was that. That's a whole other chapter we could get into if you want.
That's it's cool. It just kind of organically grew out of interest, which I think is better than having, say, a parent push a child into anything at all.
Totally.
Yeah. Three Pines is a whodunit based on a series of whodunit novels. Yeah. I talked to Sarah Booth yesterday.
Oh, no way. Cool.
Yeah, she's great.
It is.
She really is. And I asked her, and so I'll ask you, the whodunit seems to be enjoying some sort of a mini renaissance of late. We've got Branagh's Agatha Christie movies. Ryan Johnson has got his second whodunit out now. Even we had the comedy version of the whodunit in See How They Run, which hit theaters earlier this year. Do you think that what do you think maybe explains that? What's the appeal of the whodunit for audiences?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and it's nothing against big blockbuster movies or Marvel or Lord of the Rings or whatnot, but the first thing that comes to mind is just people are, I think they're ready to scale it back a little bit and bring their entertainment back to a kind of more grassroots level as far as intimacy is concerned. And I think because of the way, well, money makes the world go round, right? And because of the whole issue of bottom line and making money and that whole thing, I think the pendulum swung that way in Hollywood, and it has swung and is still swinging, but people still love a good, cozy, for lack of a better word, story to get involved with, and to feel like they can put themselves in the shoes of these characters, or in this town, to live vicariously, as it were, through characters and through these situations. There's a catharsis, I think, that you can experience when you can get lost in a world like this, that is more plausible than, say, Thor or Spider-Man or that kind of thing. And those are great, but and of course these are plausible, but yet a little kind of almost fantastical, the way the way some of these crimes unfold. They're almost like, but that's the beauty of this adaptation, is there is that stylized element, and people that don't get that are critical perhaps of the show. And let's say some of the prose-like language that's used, some of it's actually pulled directly from the books. But yeah, no, I think it is refreshing for people to get into a cozy little story. I
like cozy as a descriptor. I think that's very, very apt. I had also noticed in Three Pines, there's a show that Sarah actually wasn't familiar with. You might be, Longmire from AMC.
It's funny because I'm really not familiar with the show, but apparently my just down the street from my place in LA, and I haven't been back there for a while, but my roommate is still there. And just down the street, there's a little coffee shop, and across the street, supposedly, is where one of the stars of Longmire lived. And so that's sort of my connection with the show, is that when we go to the coffee shop, he'd be like, "That's the dude from Longmire, lives in that house right there." So that's kind of how I first heard about the show. But I'm actually, as far as the show itself, I'm not really familiar with it. So, but I am familiar with it, but not,
Yeah, it's set in Wyoming with a Sheriff Walt Longmire. It's a great show, by the way, if you're into Western or that kind of atmosphere. But it's kind of a whodunit because there's always something going on. But the thing that I was comparing it to is that it's right up against a native reservation. So there's always the interplay with the indigenous peoples and rights, and the plights of the indigenous people, specifically the indigenous women,
Yeah.
Which but like Longmire, I think Three Pines, it's always there as a story aspect, but it's never um it's never the thing. It's ever present, but it's not, they're not beating you with it, but you're aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
And that balance in a lot of shows that are trying to deal with difficult things, or unflattering concepts, sometimes they can't get the balance right. You guys all have also seemed to get that balance right. So my question is, were you aware of that aspect of the material going in, or did it kind of dawn on you as you started going through the scripts? And what do you think of the approach that you guys have taken?
That's a great question. I wasn't aware to a great extent at the outset. The focus for me as an actor and for my character was really more based in the town, and those stories. But no, of course, as I started reading the scripts, I became fully aware of all that stuff. And it was, yeah, I totally concur and agree with you that it was tremendous how they managed to weave both of those elements together. Such an important story and stories to be told. Kind of, you're talking about Longmire, kind of reminds me too of Yellowstone, at least I've just recently started getting into Yellowstone, and there's that element as well, the reservation and that kind of tension or dichotomy even. And no, it's great, man. I think it's, I'm so glad that they took it there. And like I said, I concur that the balance that they've managed to achieve is tremendous.
Yeah, they never downplay it, nor do they. I mean, so like I said, you can't ignore it, but neither are you. It's not the topic of the show, so
No,
you're not putting anyone out, which is nice. And it sounds weird when I say it like that, but that's what I know. There's a better way to say that. I just don't have.
No, I don't think it sounds weird. I think the other way I would maybe be inclined to put it is they managed to avoid the trap, or avoid falling into the trap of becoming preachy about these extraordinarily important issues that have been underrepresented, and it could be easy to fall into the trap of getting, preachy about it, or kind of hitting us over the head with it. I don't think they do that at all.
No.
And I think the way they do it, by allowing the story to carry, allowing the words in the script and the story to carry the story, to carry the message, and that, I mean, that's storytelling 101. Yeah. That's the way to do it, is to not tell people what they should think or how they should feel, but to just say, look, this is what's going on, and then to tell a story that does justice to what's going on. And yeah, it's tragic, but it's so necessary that people become more aware of that. So I'm so glad that all these shows are doing that now,
Yeah. There are a lot of indigenous actors in the show, which is this is a large ensemble. Even in the show, though we have Chief Inspector Gamache is played by the great Alfred Molina. But what is it like working with this? Because you're in the town, because you're in Three Pines, so you deal with this huge ensemble more than maybe some other people do. What is it like working with such this? It's a huge and diverse swath of characters. And then, of course, I'll give you a second to gush about Alfred Molina if you want.
Sure. Yeah. That's not hard to do at all. I mean, the first word that comes to mind is just humbling to be surrounded by such not only amazing talents, but just amazing people, like really legitimately good, kind people. And I can say that like without, being, without trying to sound, like I'm just saying the right thing, but I mean it. Like talking to some of these actors, not only the actors, but the producers and the directors that we had as well. Speaking of the indigenous aspect, Tracy Deer directed episodes 3 and 4. She was just super hands-on, tremendously insightful, talented, and caring director. You know, and the same thing goes for all our directors, Daniel Grew and Sam Donovan. Amazing. But, you know, having a chance, like as an example, to connect with Tantu Cardinal, wow. I mean, you know, and when you're working with someone, you can't necessarily appreciate the work that they're doing until after you see the finished product. And like just watching her performance, among all of them, but her performance has kind of been, you know, putting chills down my spine. And yeah, I think Tantu is just wow. You know, I could say that about like everybody. As far as Alfred Molina, I mean, he's a star for a reason, you know, and he's become this tour de force actor, and this he's got such presence, but it's honestly grounded in a genuine heart and a character of integrity. And he knows how to lead a set, and he knows how to carry a film or a show. And yeah, just his example set the tone for all of us. And I you know, like I said, I'm just humbled and so fortunate and blessed to have been a part, and to be hopefully continuing to be a part of such a great ensemble, a great group of people. Alfred Molina is just, I mean, he's brilliant. You know, I don't use that word lightly, but he's also just a genuinely down to earth, humble, kind, and sweet man.
It seems like it. I love it when I hear that about people that I think I think of the way they are. So this is a Three Pines. This is a French Canadian show. This isn't even just Canadian television, of which there is so much in America. Yeah. So it's almost to. I'll play the crass American for a second. You know, so it's almost a foreign show, but there are a lot of foreign dramas out there now. You know, Europe's got a couple of my favorites. You know, Dark and 1899. You know, Asia has given us Squid Games. You know, so the sensibilities are different. What kind of reaction were you hoping for outside of Quebec for this kind of little weird niche whodunit?
Yeah, it's an interesting way to put it. Well, I mean, obviously, I was hoping for, you know, a tremendous reception, and knowing that we had Amazon behind us, or at least, you know, as a platform, and knowing that we had Left Bank with their sensational track record with The Crown for Netflix, you know, producing, and the team. I mean, just Amelia, and she's, you know, our showrunner, and the EPs. Alfred's an executive producer, along with Sam Donovan and John Phillips. Just such a great group of people. So yes, it's a Canadian production, in that, you know, we're kind of like coming in through Amazon Canada, but we have this great pedigree of Left Bank in England. So in that sense, it's kind of a British Canadian production, kind of like me. But no, we have that element, and then we have, you know, Amazon, of course, being an American company. There's that aspect as well. So I wouldn't say it's like a typical kind of just strictly Canadian show. Obviously, it's sort of mainly Canadian, and we're very proud of that, seeing as the majority of the cast is Canadian, at least partially Canadian. And I think the expectation was, you know, when you read the scripts and then you kind of get a feel for how things are going while you're shooting. I think I mean, I don't want to sound presumptuous, but I think I had pretty high expectations that people would take to it, would like it. And then the other thing is that Louise Penny, who is Canadian, has had tremendous success, particularly in the US. So I think in that sense, I was pretty confident going in that we would have a pretty nice reception, which we have.
Yeah, I think it's been great. We just finished the 8-episode season 1. So for people that haven't watched it, that's 4 2-episode arcs that they release 2 episodes a week. So that is all available to stream now. You can just binge it on the weekend. It's a fun watch. I do highly recommend it to everyone. I think it's great. But now, because we're almost done, and this is ostensibly a movie podcast, I do get to ask you 2 movie related questions.
Sure, go for it.
One is, what is the last film you saw in a theater? The most recent film.
Oh my gosh, you put me on the spot. In the theater. Oh, well, I guess it was Top Gun. I guess it was Top Gun.
Really? That
Uh,
was it recently, or did you see it when it came out? Were you an opening weekend guy?
no, I wasn't. It was not recently, and it wasn't at the very beginning. It was kind of, I guess it was kind of towards the end. Shamefully, I admit. But
Did you
yeah,
see it in IMAX?
no, I didn't, and I
Oh,
have to. I need to. I have to because, look, I'm a big Tom Cruise fan. Love Tom Cruise. But with all the, I mean, nonstop like rave, everybody saying how amazing this movie was. I hate that. I hate going into a movie having heard all this stuff because I had this extremely lofty expectations. And here's the thing: I saw it in a theater that did not have their sound system dialed in the way that I think they should.
oh,
It was just almost obnoxious. I'm probably sounding like a kind of like old fart or something, but it was obnoxious. I went with my well, I went with, I went with my wife and both our kids, and so we have an 8-month-old too, and so we had to put the headphones on him
yep.
because it was so loud. Well, at the time, I guess he would have been more like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, but and then he did a poo poo at the sort of in the last 15 minutes. So I actually had to step out the last 15 minutes and change his diaper. I volunteered to do that. Yeah.
Because you're a good dad. I've been there.
Yeah, I was gonna give myself a little pat on the back there for that, but yeah, no, I did that. But yeah, I mean, I got to see it again, man. I got to see it in IMAX somehow, or yeah. But it was great. It was great. Just,
did you see a lot of movies in well, what was the favorite movie that you watched this year? Whether it was in theaters or you caught it after it hit streaming, what's the favorite movie from 2022?
Oh man,
There's a lot of good ones out there.
yeah,
Sarah had trouble with this too.
There are. I know, because it's that whole thing where, it's that sort of deer in headlights thing when someone asks you a question like that, and you're kind of going through the file in your mind going, what have I gone out to see? With the pandemic and all that, I've been kind of like a bit of a homebody, but I know I've seen some stuff in the theater, man. What have I seen? Can I include something that I saw from home?
Yeah,
Maybe?
if it's from this year, go ahead.
What did I from this year? Shoot. um, I know there's got to be stuff, man. There's got to be. I'm just like, give me a second.
Well, with little kids, it's tough. I'll give you some. I'll give you.
Okay.
I'll cut you some slack on that because there's a lot of good movies that you probably haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
I'll just throw a couple names at you. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Did not see that.
Oh, yeah. That's after the kids go to bed, just sit down with the wife and be prepared to have your minds blown.
Yeah.
Top Gun is good. Puss in Boots actually comes out today.
Top of my list. No, I actually didn't see Puss in Boots. No, it comes out today though.
Comes out Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is in the States. Comes out today.
Okay.
I was surprised how much I like that one. Actually,
tell me what other movies I should have watched because I'll try to make a point of seeing them.
You know what? Hold on. I'm going to pull up my list right now of because I've watched a lot of movies this year. No offense. The Whale lives up to the hype, in my opinion. If you haven't seen that yet,
I plan on it. For sure.
Are you a horror guy or a violence guy?
No, not really a horror guy, but I don't know. What kind of violence are you talking here?
Violent Night, the Santa Claus movie.
No, but how was that?
That I saw it twice. I had to see it as a screening before it released. And then my wife couldn't come with me, so I told her I would take her to see it. So I saw it twice and I smiled my way through it the entire time.
Okay.
It's rated R for gore because it's Die Hard with Santa Claus. But it's in the best possible. They make the Die Hard jokes for you in that movie. Just so much good. Glass Onion.
No,
talking whodunits. If you like Knives Out, you should like Glass Onion.
Put it on the list.
Yeah. Honestly, I guess you can only screen it on Roku. Is Weird, the Al Yankovic story. It's just
really. It's only on Roku. Really?
I think so. That's where I had to watch it.
And how did you like?
I didn't like it as one of my fellow critics here, but it's entertaining if you just, as soon as you realize that he's not actually making a Weird Al biopic, but
Yeah.
he's the main character.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not quite to the level of, say, the massive weight of unbearable talent or whatever, the Nicolas Cage one.
Yeah.
That was a great movie. I think that was this year too. If you want a documentary, I'm just going to tell you to watch Goodnight Oppie, so you can cry about a little robot that's walking around on Mars. You wouldn't think that you will cry at the end of Goodnight Oppie, but you will. so, but no, there's just so much good stuff come out this year. A lot of it should be streaming now.
I'm just like blanking, man. So I'm sure there was more than just Top Gun, but
and Marcel the Shell with shoes on. There, that's my shameless plug for that. My
awesome,
favorite animated movie of the year is
the
Marcel
thing
the
I
Shell.
heard about the Weird Al thing was they put a lot of stuff in there that was just like sort of fantastical fiction.
Oh, it is. It is. It's just, it's out there. Like Rocket Man, but from Weird Al's point of view. It's like I said, once you realize he is not making a biopic at all.
Yeah.
And then so I said, I described it. This is the movie he wanted to make when he made UHF.
Okay.
So and I love UHF, and I love UHF more than I like Weird, but Weird has its appeal. So if you're an Al Yankovic fan, that might be one for you. So
yeah, for sure.
So I'm almost out of time here. So I will thank you once again, Mr. Julian Bailey, for joining me here on the Visually Stunning Movie Podcast. I will remind everyone again that Three Pines is on Amazon right now. All of season 1, 8 episodes, well worth your time. A great show. And I hope you stay safe and wide. Are you in? You got a coat. I'm going to guess you're back east somewhere.
I have the coat because I kind of ran in and, didn't want to keep you waiting. And I don't know. I kind of like the coat. I also didn't want to, I wasn't sure if you'd catch the logo, but I have an Adidas sweater on.
I have no problem with that. I have a Mandalorian t-shirt.
I don't know. I just kept the coat on. I was actually contemplating doing this in my car because the light was great today. But then I was like, so I tried to get my setup going in here and then ran out of time. So I just didn't take the coat off.
Well, stay warm if it's cold wherever you're at, because I know most of this freaking continent is an ice box right now.
Yeah, crazy, man. No, I will. You too, man. And thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed
absolutely
talking.
And you're welcome back anytime to talk about any project you'd like.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
You too. Well, let's talk about Three Pines really quick. But so this is a French Canadian show. I've been calling it that because it's not really a Canadian show. This is a French Canadian show. You are neither French nor Canadian.
I mean, I'm a permanent resident of Canada, and I'm married to a Canadian, and it's one of those funny things, like, how Canadian are you really to play this role? I consider myself to be as Canadian as I can be, whatever that means. I live in Toronto and also spend time in London, which is where I grew up, and where I lived for my whole life. But I'm on my way to becoming more and more Canadian, whatever that means. I'm feeling more and more Canadian as the years go on, and I'm really happy to be here and be exploring another country, another culture, and whatever it brings.
That's excellent. Now, like your two co-stars that I talked to earlier this week, I found something when I was looking at your CV, if you will. Sarah Booth used to work in the Waterworld stunt show, which I found amazing. Julian was on an American soap opera, which I also found amusing because it was one I used to watch with my grandmother way back in the day when I would stay home from school sick. You do roller derby, or did do what? Explain.
Yeah, so after I left drama school, I discovered roller derby through the daughter of a director that I had worked with, and she took me to see a they call it a bout, so a game, a match, whatever you want to call it, and it was just exhilarating and thrilling, and I very quickly started to train in roller derby and skating for that particular sport and everything that came with it, and it's an incredible sport. It's incredibly athletic and wonderful and colorful and very different to, I think, a lot of the documentaries that you can find about it on Netflix and so on. I think they're kind of cheesy and they go for the original roller derby, which was more like kind of wrestling and for show. It's not like that anymore. So please, viewers, don't even look at it online. Go see a game in real life and experience the brilliance that is roller derby. Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing I learned this week about you is that apparently you were familiar with the source material coming in.
Yes. Yeah. I was, because I had filmed something in London with the writer and creator of Three Pines. It was a show called Deceit, and Amelia De Girolamo, who's the writer and creator, she reached out to me after filming had finished, and she told me about Three Pines and the novels, and she knew that I was also in Canada, and so she told me about the project, which doesn't always happen. And I was really grateful to just know about it a little bit in advance. And it meant that I could get into the novel series. I read, I think, the first 5 novels before the audition came around. And I I really connected with Clara Morrow, who I ended up reading for. And, thankfully it was the right character for me, and they really believed in me, and it all worked out, which is just wonderful. I feel very, very lucky.
Yeah, you're exceptional at it, actually. So you're playing an artist. What is your art background? Because we don't see you and Peter physically doing a lot of art, but do you have an art background?
In real life,
Yes.
yeah, I do. My dad was an actor, but also before that, he trained in like print at a printers, and he was really an incredible artist as well as an actor. And my mum studied in fine art, and my sister as well, although my sister's a jeweler now, and I was sort of surrounded by art all the time, I guess, without really realizing it. And I've always been good at art, but never really passionate about taking up painting as a full-time hobby or anything like that. And it was in this last year after filming that I took my first pottery course, and I fell in love with the art form and everything that came with it. And I was really able to apply all of my artistic knowledge that I had into this new medium that just spoke to me somehow. And I became obsessed with it, you could say. I was thinking about it all the time. And so I've developed a whole body of work this year, and even launched my pottery business, which I'm really pleased with and happy about. And it's really nice to have other things as well as, your main passion that you're also passionate about, and that you kind of have a lot more artistic control over. And I think that playing Clara Morrow kind of inspired me to sort of go for it, because I think it's something that had always been dormant in me, and there'd never been enough time to really give it attention. And I think playing that role, and also being inspired by Louise Penny, who took up novel writing in her late 40s and became an incredibly successful crime writer, there were all these kind of things just sort of nudging me to not turn it away, and go for it. And I'm really, really pleased that that happened.
Yeah. So Three Pines is it's a whodunit series based on a series of whodunit novels. I mentioned to your co-stars, the whodunit as a genre is in the middle of this like mini renaissance. We've had Branagh's Agatha Christie films. We've got Ryan Johnson who's got his second whodunit in theaters now. We had the comedy See How They Run,
Yeah.
whodunit earlier this year. What do you think the appeal of the whodunit is for audiences, and why do you think maybe it's kind of coming back a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, you get such rich, layered stories in a whodunit, and you get a whole selection of characters that you get invested in, but you don't know whether you can love them or not trust them. And you kind of, all those things, I guess, that maybe you doubt in life, like, can I trust this person? Who am I rooting for? And it's kind of a fun guessing game, I think. But what makes this particular version unique, I think, is our inspector. He's not a troubled kind of uh, dark figure. He's troubled in his own way, but he really leads from empathy and trying to find the good in others. And I think we don't often see that kind of gentle inspector, and he's really lovely to be around and to follow. And he kind of leads us on his path, I guess, through discovering who might be guilty.
Yeah, well, since you mentioned our inspector, let me just this is a big ensemble cast. And of course, you've got Alfred Molina at the top. What is it like working? How do you feel working with this group of actors and Alfred Molina?
Well, as I'm sure you've heard from Sarah and Julian, Alfred was an incredible joy to work with. He was so funny at all times. He was really lifting everyone's spirits, and just, I think he really set the tone for everyone to just mesh and do the work, and there be no ego, and just enjoy the work. And yeah, he's an incredible lead actor to have on your set, and just allows you to kind of succeed in the stories that you're trying to tell. So yeah, he was very special.
And the rest of the cast. I mean, it's Three Pines that's for a small town. That's a huge community. When you look
Yeah.
at you look at book club. I mean that, or in the cafe. I mean that's a couple of handfuls of characters that all play a pretty important role depending on which scene we're in. I mean, is it hard to maybe make yourself feel known or important in that, or do you just trust the scripts?
I think you always have to trust the script, and I would say that each character, our director Sam Donovan wanted to make sure that each character had come up with a secret, so each actor had a secret for their character, and you could kind of carry that with you in any given scene. And you in a lot of those scenes, you are just seeing the reactions, the physical reactions, the storytelling that people are doing just through their eyes. And I think, the fact that everyone had their very detailed kind of backstory, whether they were taking it from the novels or whether they'd invented their own secret history and tension that was going on for them, everyone could kind of carry that with them wherever they were going, so they didn't feel as if they didn't know what they were bringing to a scene. Everyone had very, very clear intentions wherever they were in whichever part of the story. And I think having such a rich source material, for me at least, I know that not everyone read the novels. um I I just had so much already that I had been reading about Clara that was just always there simmering in the background, and I could kind of carry that with me wherever I went. So I found that to be really helpful. And hopefully, if we go to a season two, we'll see more and more of the villagers and their backstories and all of the different things that make them tick. But I think it's really important for a first season to really be not sure about all of those people in the town, and where they're going and what they're feeling. And I won't give away too much, but yeah, I think it's important to have that uncertainty about them in the start.
I agree totally. Since you have the background in the books, and you've got all that material, I'm going to ask the show. Real it brings into focus the plight of the indigenous people, specifically the indigenous women, and the way those kind of get lost in the shuffle, so to speak. Was that present in the book? Were you, or the books, were you aware of that going in to making the show, or how do you feel that was done? Because I feel like the balance was really well struck between that's not the story, but that's a huge part of the environment in which we
Yeah.
live in the show. And I just wondering what you knew going in and how you feel about that.
Yeah, it's a guiding kind of thread that goes throughout. It's something that is present in the novels. It's actually a missing Indigenous boy, but it isn't something that spans throughout the novel series in the way that it does in the show. And I think it's really testament to Emilia de Girolamo and, the team at Left Bank and Amazon, who brought on different Indigenous consultants and really created these storylines years before, the mass graves were discovered, of all the children at the residential schools. These stories, they were very in tune to the history and the trauma of Canada, and wanted to make sure that that was part of these stories, and they really did it so incredibly. And you have to hand that credit to Emilia de Girolamo and the creative team. And it's something that Louise Penny, the author of the novel series, had said she wishes she had been able to bring that out so deftly. And I think, when you're writing a novel series, you don't really know where something is going to go. And she started those books, over a decade ago. So I think having fresh eyes on the novel series and adapting it for screen and making it as current as possible and as reflective of the Canada and the identities that we have today, I think is really, really essential. You can't continue to whitewash TV in the way that it has been. And the Indigenous cast is just so incredible. And it's really exciting to see, as well as it is traumatic to experience these stories, it's very exciting to have so many Indigenous actors in a show like this. And I think it feels very wonderful to be able to to share the screen with those wonderful actors. And yeah, I know that they've felt that it's been something very special for them too.
Yep. What kind of what kind of reception did you guys expect, and you specifically, for the show, maybe outside of, I mean, the Canadian novelist, Canadian settings, what kind of reception were you maybe expecting for the show?
Yeah. For Canadian audiences, we were sort of, knowing that the novels had such a big readership, and worldwide, in fact. So I was really curious to see how that translated now that it was, being made into a TV show. I was definitely getting messages from people in the UK who read the novel series and were really excited to see that it was being made into a show. And I had no idea, that it was such a kind of well-loved series until, more recently. I myself was really curious to discover what the reception would be. We had been told that they were kind of aiming for a kind of mix between Fargo and Twin Peaks, and a kind of blend of different things, but it's found its own voice, and it treads kind of between different crime genres. And I think it has its own unique voice, which is really wonderful to see, that it's not just copying something else. It feels like it has its own thing. And that's the thing that I was most pleased to see, is that it had a voice that was different to anything else. And I think that's what's going to make it the success that it has been, and will hopefully continue to be.
Yeah. One of my comparisons, specifically on the integration of the Indigenous plight, was a show that was on AMC a few years ago called Longmire, which, it's another law enforcement show set next to a reservation. And so that interplay played a huge part. I mean, the Sheriff Walt Longmire is not Chief Inspector Armand Gamache by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe their base worldviews are very similar in right and wrong and whatnot, and the balance both shows kind of struck between
Yeah.
the two cultures is kind of interesting. So the 8 episodes of season 1 are now complete. Everyone can stream them on Amazon in full. It's 4 2-episode arcs. So it's bingeable in 2-episode chunks, or you can just binge all 8. Fingers crossed for season 2. Hopefully, any rumblings that
It's
you can't
looking very
spoil?
positive. We don't know yet at this point. We're hoping to find out very soon. It's looking so positive so far. I mean, it was #1 in Canada, the UK, Australia, in the States, in kind of all the regions that it was airing in. So you'd hope that with those figures that it will continue, but who knows? You never know until you know, and you're filming.
Yeah, I'm fingers crossed for that. So we'll wrap up here, but since I ostensibly run a movie podcast, I'm going to ask you 2 movie questions that hopefully you're prepared for, because neither of your co-stars were.
All right, give it to me.
The first is, what is the last movie that you saw in a theater?
In the theater. It's hard with COVID times. You are going less, aren't you? Yes, I am underprepared. God, I don't know. I think it was like a superhero thing or something. Oh
It might
no.
have been Black Panther then, if it was a super. It could have been Black Adam if it had The Rock in it.
Not that recent. Yeah. Oh dear. I'm sorry.
That
I'll
is
write it down.
terrible. Have you watched have you streamed anything at home this year? And if you've watched any 2022 films, what is the favorite movie that you watched this year? What is the one that you just think I can go, I just enjoyed that movie?
Yeah, yeah, we watched a lot at home this year. I think for me, one of my favorites was probably Everything Everywhere All at Once.
An
That was
excellent choice.
such a stunning film, and so emotional and beautiful, and I think those kind of family stories really resonate with me. They hit all the right things.
Well, I also threw some recommendations at your co-stars as well, for
Oh,
movies that you may or may not have seen. And if I say them, you may go, oh yes, I did indeed watch that. One, if you want a nice, wholesome family show, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. You
oh
can't
yeah,
not
I've
watch that.
seen the trailers for that. Okay,
It's you
worth
you
watching.
yes, if you don't enjoy that, I keep telling people, if you don't enjoy that, you just don't have a soul. There's just, you can't not enjoy that. If you didn't see Top Gun, if you're not even an action movie, that
That was the
person,
last one I saw, I think, maybe. Yeah, Top Gun.
yeah, that one is great. If you haven't seen Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio on Netflix,
Oh,
I
really? It's good.
I
You like it?
it's so much better than that other Pinocchio that was out earlier this year.
Okay.
But yes, the Guillermo version's all stop motion. It's just incredible.
Wow.
And just recently, if you're into any kind of horror at all,
Oh, yes, I am.
if you haven't seen Violent Night, um, I
That's
saw it.
the
That's
Santa.
the Santa one. I saw it twice in theaters, and I smiled through it the entire time. It's just
Wow.
it's rated R for a reason. But if you're okay with that, you'll act the weirdest movie to smile your way through violence, but it just is.
Really?
It's fabulous. If you're a
Okay.
fan of that genre,
I do love horror films. I really enjoy being scared.
oh well,
And
then
I love
I
dark crime.
don't know if you're an Evil Dead Sam Raimi fan. If you've watched
No, I never
those,
really watched any of those. They're worth watching?
they brought us the great and wonderful Bruce Campbell, but they also really they're horror comedies. But
Mm.
they've expanded past that, so they actually have a new one coming out on April 1st, I believe, called Evil Dead Rise. It's actually set in a skyscraper instead of the cabin in the woods. It kind of invented the cabin in the woods genre. So
Oh,
yeah, but they're silly, they're scary, they're entertaining, they're just all of the things.
amazing.
And they don't skimp on blood at all. There's so much blood.
Oh God.
That's just, and it's there's so much blood that it's just ridiculous, to the point of being ridiculous, and then you just have to laugh at the copious amounts of blood. So they're some of my favorite movies to go back and watch and just laugh my way through them, because the horror is horrific and yet hilarious at the same time, and it's mostly because of the performances.
Combination, don't you? So you're not just disgusted by the whole thing.
Sam Raimi wrote and directed those, and he did Doctor Strange earlier this year, the Multiverse of Madness, and I watched that movie and I was like, oh, there's so much Evil Dead in that movie. It's just all of those horror things that he invented. I loved it to death. But yes, if you haven't, you need to go watch Violent Night. It's well worth your time. So if there's kids, don't let them watch. Okay. It's got Santa, but it's not for them at all. So no, but it is, but it's entertaining, but it is entertaining. Well, yeah. So that's it. You have 2 assignments then. You have to watch Marcel the Shell and you have to watch Violent Night.
Brilliant. Thank you. I love that recommendation.
I'll have given them, I've watched so many movies this year that it is not, and I've watched a lot in theaters because I've had to. And it's, I think I've averaged now more than a film a day first watches this year.
Wow.
Whether at home or in theaters. And that's a lot of cinema.
That's a lot of cinema.
A lot of cinema. And in a couple of weeks, I get to do Sundance. So that'll be fun. I'll try to cram as many of those in as I can. But Anna, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
I want to recommend again to everyone, go watch 3 Pines on Amazon right now, all 8 episodes. You're going to get a season 2. That's all I'm going to say. Don't think people don't think you're not going to get a season 2. We're going to get a season 2. It's too good. Amazon has to be smarter than that to not give us a season 2. So thank you again very much. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
And have a great time. And anytime you want to come back on, if we get season 2 and you want to talk about that or anything else,
absolutely,
just reach right out and we will zoom this right up and get the gabbing.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.